That completes questions. We now come to Prime Minister's questions. Chris Hinchcliffe.
Question number 1, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Yesterday I met the brave men and women serving on HMS Iron Duke and the troops serving in Operation Cabaret in Estonia. This Christmas, as every Christmas, members of our armed forces will be serving overseas, working day and night to protect Britain's national security. And I know that the whole House will join me in sending our deepest thanks to them, to our emergency services and everyone working to keep the country safe over the festive period. Mr. Speaker, may I also take this opportunity at the end of the year to thank you and the House staff for all your hard work this year. And can I wish everyone across the House a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Mr. Speaker, this morning I had meetings with ministerial colleagues and others. In addition to my duties in this House, I shall have further such meetings later today.
Chris Hinchcliffe.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and may I associate myself with the Prime Minister's remarks. In 2021, Kerry and Francis Menai Davis, who live in my constituency of North East Hertfordshire and are in the gallery here today, tragically lost their son Hugh at the age of just 6 to a rare form of cancer. Now they are courageously campaigning to ensure that every parent who must leave work to look after a sick child in hospital gets the financial support that they need from day one. Will the Prime Minister meet with them and me to discuss implementing Hugh's law and giving their son a legacy that improves the lives of families at the most difficult time imaginable?
Mr. Speaker, can I pay tribute to Kerry and Francis? It is a heartbreaking case and commend them for their campaign on behalf of other families. I know the Minister for Social Security and Disability met the family yesterday, but no parent should endure losing their child to cancer, particularly at such a young age. We are investing £1.5 billion for new surgical hubs and scanners, £70 million for new radiotherapy machines, and we will set out our next steps on the Children and Young People Cancer Task Force shortly.
We now come to the Leader of the Opposition, Kemi.
Mr. Speaker, can I send my warmest wishes to our armed forces at home and overseas, to the emergency services and everyone who will be working over Christmas. And can I wish you, Mr. Speaker, the House staff and all members of this House a very Merry Christmas. Mr. Speaker, for years, the Prime Minister and his Cabinet played politics with the WASPy women. The Deputy Prime Minister said Conservatives were stealing their pensions. She promised to compensate them in full. Another broken promise. Now they admit we were right all along. But let's ask about another group of pensioners whose trust... Let's ask about another group of pensioners whose trust was broken. Since the Chancellor cut winter fuel payments, how many extra people have applied for pension credit?
Mr. Speaker, the number one job of this government was to put the finances back in order after the last government lost control. They left a £22 billion black hole and we had to take tough choices. We made sure the most vulnerable pensioners do get the winter fuel payment, and we have been encouraging and driving up eligibility for pension credit, so saying up to their entitlement. And she should join that campaign. But, Mr. Speaker, here's the difference. Because we've stabilised the economy, we can commit to the triple lock. That means that next April, pensioners get another £470. But here's the difference, because 2 weeks ago, the Shadow Chancellor said the triple lock is unsustainable, their position. So pensioners would lose out under the Tories yet again.
Mr. Speaker, he didn't answer the question because he doesn't know the answer. There are 850,000 eligible pensioners not claiming pension credit. If they sign up, that will cost the Treasury £2.3 billion, wiping out the savings that the Chancellor claimed she would make. Before the election, his Chief Secretary told the public they had no plans to cut winter fuel. But they did have plans, didn't they? Age UK say cutting the winter fuel payment with very little notice will potentially jeopardise the health and finances of millions of older people. Does he agree with Age UK that this is the last thing both pensioners and the NHS need?
Mr. Speaker, we've been driving up with a campaign for pension credit. It's important that everybody who's entitled to it claims that pension credit. And she shouldn't claim as some great victory the record of their government that people haven't signed up. We're the ones with the campaign. They should be supporting it. But because of the triple lock, pensions will be going up by £470 next April. She hasn't answered the question. Her shadow chancellor says the triple lock is unsustainable. So she needs to explain how pensioners will be worse off under a Tory government.
It is Prime Minister's question.
Mr. Speaker, we protected the triple lock during all our time in government. Meanwhile, energy bills are increasing, despite his promise to cut them by £300. In Scotland, his party leader wants to restore the winter fuel payments. Across England, councils are scrabbling together funds for struggling pensioners. The tragic reality this Christmas is pensioners will suffer and may even die as a result of this cruel policy. Did the Chancellor consider the impact on councils and on the NHS, or does she just not know what she's doing?
The Household Support Fund was set out in the budget. She knows that. We're pushing up pension credit. But she now says they are committed to the triple lock. Her shadow chancellor says they're not, that it's unsustainable. Maybe over a sandwich or a steak they could sort it out and come back and tell us what their policy actually is.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister needs to misrepresent me to make his point. I don't need to misrepresent him to make my point. Yes. The truth is, he didn't think this through. Cutting winter fuel payments isn't just callous. It may not make savings. It could actually cost us all more. And that's not the only policy which is making things worse. The Chancellor's budget is a body blow to family businesses and also charities. Marie Curie have warned that Labour's budget will cost them nearly £3 million a year. This is a cancer charity saying they have no option but to reduce services. Did the Chancellor tell the Prime Minister that her jobs tax was going to hit charities?
Mr. Speaker, she's asked 3 questions about winter fuel with a leaving out. I'll come to that. But she's changed her mind on this. She used to say that the payments were a dead weight. She said there were members of her constituency who didn't need it. And they all stood in 2017 on a manifesto, a Tory manifesto, that committed to getting rid of the universal winter payments for pensioners. So we can see what their real commitment is. As for the budget, we're driving up productivity.
I don't want to have to ring your mother. Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we're driving up productivity, prosperity and living standards. That's a pay rise for the 3 million who are the lowest paid. They should welcome that. A pay rise for those working in the NHS and better than expected wage growth just before Christmas. What unites all three? Delivered by Labour, opposed by the Tories.
Mr. Speaker, I don't know what world he's living in. The economy is shrinking, and they did not think this jobs tax through or who it would impact. Another area affected is the hospice sector. Hospices believe the budget will cost them an extra £30 million. Yesterday, Conservatives voted to exempt social care, nurseries, charities and hospices from their jobs tax. Labour voted this down. So can the Prime Minister at least agree to fund hospices so they can continue their invaluable work helping people at the end of their lives?
Mr. Speaker, we put a record amount into the NHS in the budget to deal with the problem that they left, and we'll set out the funding arrangements for hospices in the new year. But it's the same old, same old. They want all the benefits. She said to herself she wants all the benefits from the budget, but she doesn't want to pay for any of them. That's what got us into the problem in the first place.
Mr. Speaker, I did not hear a commitment there to help hospices, which is a shame. The truth is, this winter, people will be suffering because of his choices. The economy is shrinking, inflation is going up, and jobs are being lost because of his budget. Pensioners won't be able to heat their homes because of his government's decisions. They raise people's hopes but then smash them with broken promises. And now we learn that he is about to give away our hard-won Brexit freedoms. Yeah. Mr. Speaker.
And they don't care. And they don't care.
All right. Mr. Speaker, now we learn he is about to give away our hard-won Brexit freedoms. The truth is, they are punching the British people in the face, literally in the case of one of his MPs, and he will pretend that this is about the past. But we all know these are his choices, bad choices. If he's looking for a New Year's resolution, why doesn't he start with telling the truth?
I'll do it now. £22 billion black hole left by them. Record numbers on the waiting lists. Nearly.
It's not a good time to leave the chamber, is it? Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, £22 billion black hole. Record waiting list with their NHS. They should hang their heads in shame. Immigration completely out of control. Nearly 1 million net migration. She was the cheerleader for all of that. She wants the truth. That's the truth. That's why they're sitting there. Mr. Speaker, whilst they cart from the sidelines, talking the country down, this government is getting on with the job. Record funding for the NHS. Money for our trains, buses, and yes, Mr. Speaker, potholes. Pay rises for 3 million of the lowest paid. Wages growing faster than inflation. Planning laws reform. Great British Energy set up. We're only getting started. Next year we'll continue to rebuild, no matter what the blockers opposite say.
Amanda Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and can I echo the words of the Prime Minister and thank you and all of our staff in this place alongside our armed forces and our emergency services and wish them a Merry Christmas. Mr. Speaker, March 2025 marks 20 years since the death of the only Member of Parliament to have held all four great offices of state: the Foreign Secretary, the Home Secretary, the Chancellor and the Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, James Callaghan was a true Portsmouth great and went to the same school as another true Portsmouth great, my dad, Terry Nolan. Does the Prime Minister back my bid for a plaque to be added to his former home in Copner, and will he come along to Portsmouth next year to unveil it?
Well, I thank her for her question. Jim Callaghan was a giant of the Labour movement and a great public servant. Mr. Speaker, he left school at 17, served in our Royal Navy, before becoming the Home Secretary, Foreign Secretary, Chancellor and, of course, finally Prime Minister. And as a proud son of Portsmouth, I'm sure he'd be honoured to be remembered in such a way. Happy Christmas.
Can I just say to Mr Mayor, I keep hearing, I heard you the other week over here, I'm hearing again that it's not a good time to push a luck today. Right, let us come to Leader of the Liberal Democrats, Red David.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Can I join the Prime Minister in his praise and best wishes for our armed forces and our emergency services? And can I join others in wishing you happy Christmas, Mr. Speaker, and all the staff of the Commons, and indeed everyone across this House? I'm coming to sing in a minute. Mr. Speaker, I've had the great joy of spending time recently with some amazing young people from the Bath Philharmonia Young Carers Choir. They're a brilliant example of the power of music to make a difference in young people's lives. One member of the choir, Caitlin, has even developed a special new project to spread the joy of music to young people in our schools and communities. So will the Prime Minister meet Caitlin to hear more about her exciting project and work with us and others to support music in our schools and communities?
Well, Mr. Speaker, I welcome his comments, and as you will know, today we're introducing the landmark Children's Wellbeing Bill to enable all children to succeed, including young carers.